love, hate with a similar passion and hurt. And as stupid as we often are, we must understand that and we do understand that it is in our interest and to our profit to survive together as a species. How can we help? Certainly we can all help. You can help by thinking a little more about the positive side of things and not give in so quickly to the negative. It is easy to criticize. It is so hard to build. We must, I think, through our movies, our journalism, pay homage to the glory of that building spirit. And as to close, our Robert Louis Stevenson, I'm quoting from memory as best I can, in his essay on Christmas Carol, said something to the effect, the highest standard we have is to learn to coexist with our own existence. The Gordian knots of life cannot be cut. They must be unraveled smilingly. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thought-provoking opening remarks. We have a mic over there. As I said, anybody here is invited to ask questions. Just do me a favor, introduce yourself, limit yourself to one question, and as I said earlier, don't make statements. I'll cut you in mid-sentence. We would like to have a dialogue. Please. Anybody has a question?
Yes, please.
Could you speak up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Is the mic on?
I don't know. It sounds like it's on.
Okay, fine.
All right, mate. Method acting, as espoused by Strasberg, Meisner, Stella Adler, created some of the greatest stars of American cinema. Did the method, as a philosophy, have any influence on your work?
I will take what the actor gives me in terms of his process. I accept the process. Some actors will come to you that way. Fewer now, I've noticed. But certainly I've found every different approach. My job is to bring together a collective. We all serve an idea. And I work with many types of people, different approaches. For example, Anthony Hopkins will, in the midst of the heaviest scene, be joking around in between. It's just the way he is. You know, he works from the outside in, or he calls it the English method. Sometimes an American actor will take things so ultra seriously that when he comes on the set, he has to have silence, and he makes everybody else miserable. But we go along with it because that's the way he is. So it's every process. Some actors just forget their lines and need earwigs. But it doesn't matter. What matters is what goes on the screen, and that's something you have to come to understand. That takes perhaps a little experience. When I was younger, I used to get upset sometimes with the methods employed. But as I've gotten more older and tolerant, listen, anything that works, buddy. I just want it to work, and that's really the key to directing a movie.
Next question.
Yeah, I'm from Sawali Pattaya TV in Pattaya.
You were in Alexander as
That's correct, sir. How are you?
You were excellent, by the way. Method acting was spectacular.
Thank you very
I think
much.
you were actually drunk in the scene.
I could have been. When do you think you're going to start shooting your Pinkville?
Ooh.
Oh.
Well, that was a sad story. Unfortunately, Pinkville was a movie we tried to make in late 2007. We were scheduled to go in Thailand, in Chiang Mai. We built the entire village. We had the whole thing cast. I think we were 3-4 weeks out when the hedge fund that was supporting the movie through United Artists pulled out. Which was actually interesting in hindsight because I didn't know then, and nor any of us knew that late 2007 was when the whole home mortgage fantasy was starting to come to the light, and the toxic so-called assets that these banks had was much heavier than anyone thought. As a matter of fact, I was at a dinner in New York, and I remember some two stockbrokers from Merrill Lynch came over. Merrill Lynch was bought. And they said, Bank of America is in the hole for $14 billion. And $14 billion, wow. we were all amazed. But as I think ultimately Bank of America went in the hole for like, Steve, was it 60, 70 billion? So I mean, the numbers were much bigger than anyone even knew. But even in 2007, Pinkville was dead. When can I shoot it? It was about My Lai massacre. It's one of the most popular subjects in America. But it's a horrible massacre that occurred in 1968 in March. And we went, Leili was with me. We went to the village of My Lai. And wow, it's a great story. It must be told. It's also an investigation. It's not just a massacre. It's a really suspenseful investigation. And I hope to God we can get it made someday, but we're going to have to scrape.
Well, I hope you tell your story.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hello. I was wondering, you've been talking basically about a kind of secret history that's been going on that we're basically not aware of through the media and through our daily lives as Americans. And do you have any plans of kind of making an all-encompassing film or documentary that deals with exposing some of that historical history, or perhaps something along the lines of, instead of showing the evil presidents of America, something like about Thomas Jefferson, for example, or Andrew Jackson, showing these kinds of problems and concepts that even they back then were warning us about?
Well, it's certainly it's a funny thing you ask, but I have been working on a 10-hour documentary called, which is coming out hopefully at the end of this year. This is my third year on it, with 2 historians and a staff of archivists and editors. It's called, for now, The Secret History of America.
Bravo. Is that going to be for television or for the theaters?
Showtime has bought it for America, and Fremantle Abroad, which is an English company, a very good one. So we'll get this out there. This is a major, precisely for the reasons of my feeling that there's no way to deal with this thing in a feature film length, because a feature's narrative is driven by the needs of one showing in 2.5 hours. I really felt that this could be my legacy to my children, to teach them perhaps another way to think about history, because they're not getting history in schools and they're not getting it on television. I don't know if you've seen the History Channel, but it's a hodgepodge of easygoing mythologies. You know, it's very hard to challenge orthodoxy on television. And I guess I saw one Ken Burns documentary too many, and I must have had a reaction. But I really thought it started for me with this World War II issue, which really got to me. The issue of, the way Ken Burns made it sound as if America won the war and beat the Germans. It's just not true. And this becomes a larger story, a much larger story, as well as the story of the atomic bomb and why it was dropped. It's a crucial story to understanding this whole post-war national security state that has come to be. The bomb has determined so much of our thinking, has made us, frankly, I mean, it's very difficult for the American mind to put to get its grasp around the idea of a war, a real war, where we sacrifice, because so many Americans are used to having the superiority of the bomb. The concept of what the Russian people went through against the Germans, where 20 to 25 million of them were killed, is way beyond the memory of most Americans and people in the West. And I think this is why it's important. History is important to remember these things and the meaning of the bomb, because the bomb is very much with us now. And this is a bomb that is not, as you know, much more powerful than the bomb at Hiroshima. This is a bomb that will threaten the life on this planet. So we're threatened in a way that is. We're threatened by the concept of using it without thinking. Mr. Bush Jr. was the most dangerous president perhaps in history, because he, in his nuclear policy review, I forgot of the 2004, I believe it was, or 2002, they blended once again, back as they did in the 1950s, they blended the concept of using conventional weapons with nuclear weapons. This is a neoconservative position. This is a very serious. I think Bush's policy allowed for nuclear bombs to be used against evil terrorists, which means anybody he says is evil can be nuclear bombed. Essentially, you should examine that document. It's an amazing document. But Bush is part of an ilk. He's part of a group that doesn't see the danger of the bomb and doesn't understand history. I don't think Bush did too well at Yale in history. In fact, I don't think he did too well in learning it. I don't think he has much attention span or grasp of concepts. So this is really important, and you're right. It's called secret history, but that's a misnomer because it isn't secret. It's on the front page of the newspapers. It has been on the front page of the newspapers, but it's been neglected.
You can see it on YouTube.
Neglected, yeah, well, maybe one day, but
I find you get the
unfortunately,
best
there's no way
news
to
on
make any
YouTube.
money on
Hang
YouTube.
on, hang on. Let him answer.
The neglected history of the United States, or the forgotten history, perhaps. Anyway, we are struggling with this, but we cannot go back and do in 10 hours. We cannot cover Jefferson. So we really do start with we deal with the 20th century and World War I, and actually we compare the 1900 election of McKinley versus William Jennings Bryan is a very interesting key election with the Gore-Bush election of 2000, which is parallel. So we try to make parallels. It's not a conventional history which is linear. This is really looking for patterns, as I said earlier when I was talking about.
Next question. You've got to go up there. Sorry.
Robin W. Martin, Bangkok. As a movie maker who has worked in 2 millennia, the 20th century and now the 21st century, do you think...
I sound like 200 years old.
Excuse me, you don't look that old, Oliver. Do you believe that the message can be got across better to the movie-going public now by movies such as James Cameron, allegorical novels, or Lord of the Rings, or other things like that, or historical novels, historical movies such as you make? Which way do you think the movie-going public can receive the message that directors are going to put across in the new millennia?
I think that's too broad a generality. Whatever works, as I said about actors, I think that Cameron has done a spectacular job, as did Peter Jackson. I mean, there's great filmmakers, and they're doing good work. I mean, I do remember this, the press in America was saying the movie business is over, blah, 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 and we had the biggest year ever last year. And frankly, the movies were good, in my opinion. Whenever they start saying one thing, I always get the chill runs up my back. I try to avoid what the masses say, and I keep telling my business manager when all the lemmings are going off the cliff, please try to change the direction here. So I'm a contrarian. I'm called a contrarian, but damn it, the movie business did not die. I do believe that young people, no matter what they say about them, are interested, yes, in the 15 minutes and the 5 minutes and the cell phone and all this, but I do think they still like a narrative, and they would still go to a 2-hour narrative story. There's a belief in it, a desire for it, as old as the caveman, as old as Homer, as old as the medieval ages, and as old as the art of movies. And it's been proven again by a series of movies this fall. And Mr. Cameron leads the pack. He has created a fable, and it works. And the fable is very modern.
Next question.
Good evening, Robert Kinnear, Alternative Innovations. I had the pleasure of working with you as an extra in Heaven and Earth way back in '93.
Wow.
So hi again. Given that the Vietnam War is probably the greatest event that took place in the last century, or even up until now, even greater than the Second World War in the tonnage of bombs dropped, which is cumulatively larger than those dropped up to the Vietnam War, and cumulatively since and ever will be, a huge number of cluster bombs dropped, which killed vast numbers of people, as you mentioned, in Vietnam. 3 million Vietnamese died, 2 million